Welcome to Timberland Farms. My name's Anthony. Behind me is my 1970s era International 430 small square baler. It does have a roller thrower on the back. I think it's a number 10 thrower on the back, but we have several issues we have to sort out on the baler itself, and we also have a flat tire we need to patch up the tube inside of there. I'm going to attempt this without having to take the wheel off, and then we're going to roll this into the driveway closer to the tools. So pardon the extra wind noise today. We have tornado warnings, but luckily we're not in Kansas anymore. We're actually in upstate New York. So this area we don't see much of tornadoes, if any at all. Maybe microbursts, maybe you'll see funneling wind. So we don't see very many tornadoes in this area. We're not in Tornado Alley, nothing like that. We have way too many hills, way too many trees to help isolate all the wind. We are in sort of a valley here. Wind likes to come this direction. Prevailing winds go this direction most of the time. I can't really sort myself. I'm pretty sure that's north. Let's get to it. Like I said, I apologize for a little wind noise, but I'm hoping that we can get this thing ready to go so then I can start my next cutting on my next field. It is getting later in the season. I have several fields I need to get cut, and I don't want to get any cut and put on the ground until I know this thing's rock solid, ready to go. So once we get this thing sorted out, we might even run some bales through this tonight. We'll break apart some bales we have stored in the barn, throw it in there, see if we can get a couple coming out the back end. So no further ado, let's get at it. There's a little bit of air in there. We got a little bit heavier duty of a sledge boot right here. Oh. So I'm dealing with a hurt wrist right now on my left arm. So hopefully we can manage without causing too much disruption. And it hurts. She is on there. Well, I can hear in the background. I'm not sure if you guys can hear, but George from Full Creek Farms just pulled in. He's going to give me a hand with this baler project tonight. Let me put our contact cement on. You didn't even tell anybody what you're doing. Patching the tire, that's what I'm doing. We'll put our patch on. And I don't have a roller, so we'll take a wrench to it instead. All right, so we got 4 pounds in here. I see no bubbles. I think we're good. Apprentice. I don't know about that. Just the apprentice. 31 and a half. Start to leak out, going too far. Floor fast loosen. So we broke this bolt off inside the needle, so I'm going to weld a washer to that stud that broke off, and then I'm going to weld this nut onto the washer. People wonder why I don't just weld the nut right to the stud that's broke off in there. Well, it's kind of difficult to get inside of the nut in some cases, especially with a smaller bolt like this. It's a lot easier to get inside of the washer and get right inside there and weld this directly to the washer. And then I could take the nut, stick the nut up on top, and I can weld the outside of the nut to the sides of the washer, to the face of the washer. We're on a little bit of an incline here. We're gonna clean up an area for a ground on this guy. Go ahead, weld our washer on there. Then we can go ahead, weld our nut. Got my ball peen hammer. We're gonna take this over to my bench vise, and we're gonna peen the area along the sides, help release some of the rust that's built up inside of the threads. And then we're gonna try to remove it. We're not gonna try removing it until we peen it with the ball peen end of the ball peen hammer. So we can peen the side of this casting to help break up some of the rust that's in there. And hopefully the heat from welding it also helps break up some of the rust. Normal mild steel is going to shoot a large quantity of sparks, where cast does not. So let's see what this does. Kind of see there that very few sparks are being thrown, so it leads me to believe that this is cast iron. All right, we could take this guy. Most bench vices have an anvil on the side, on the back of it. So we're gonna take this guy, lay it down here, and peen this area. Then we can take our wrench, So I didn't leave myself a whole lot of hex here. Most of this is weld built up, but there's still enough for me to barely fit the end of the box end on here. But you can see how easy this is turning out of here. Work it back and forth. You don't want to snap it off, then you have to start over. But 9 times out of 10, this method works for me the first time. So a lot of times people just use a nut and they get frustrated because the nut keeps breaking off. With a washer, you get to weld a couple separate times, adding more heat into it without having to add a torch. I don't have a torch. I have an oxyacetylene torch, and it's out of gas, out of oxygen, as well as the acetylene. But just like that, falls right out. I bet you that's toasty, so we're not going to touch it. All right, so we need to replace this swing arm. So we can just go ahead and cut this wire for our bale counter. So now our bale counter is disconnected. You go ahead and remove this cotter key. We can remove these two 9/16 nuts. They are carriage bolts, so you shouldn't need a wrench on the back side. With these guys, I like to work them back and forth so I know that I'm not going to break the stud off. Then we have a lock washer, and same thing on this guy. Now you go repeat this on the other side. A little bit of persuasion and it'll drop right out. And there we go. Now we can go put it on the other one. So here we have our new part. So this thing is directional. One side you have the arm that sticks off the side that goes into, I'm not sure if you can see this, it goes into the mechanism that controls the knotters down to a rod that goes to this point here. So you're going to make sure that this stays on the driver's side of the baler. And then you want to take special note of these guys. This is the mount and the stud that the swing arm attaches to. It slides into place just like that. These are also directional. So you don't want to flip it this way. It has to be oriented this direction. So you have the long part up top and the short part on the bottom, as well as this is the driver's side. The other one over there on the other side of this swing arm is the passenger side. Because if you flip this around, now this stud is going to be higher than what it's supposed to be, because it's supposed to be facing down, and as well as it's off-centered left to right here, forward and backwards. It's off-centered. Stick these guys on there first. There's a washer on either side. The washer's held in there by the grease. So we can slide this into place and bolt this guy up. Since these bolts are so rusty, I went out and got new grade 5 bolts. These are a little long, so I'm going to have to cut them down in length once I bolt them up into place. Good enough. Now on the other side. Figure while we're over on this side, we can stick this guy on here. This was the original replacement that I found off the parts baler, and I had this one sitting in my parts pile. As you can see, the ends of them are different. This one hangs over further. So the problem with this guy, if we stick this on here, this part of the rod will connect this shaft, and this will bend and break. It's supposed to have the offset, either offset plate like the other baler has, or the offset arm that this baler is supposed to have. This goes here, and it connects down here for their swing arm. I cut these off now instead of earlier because this burns up the threads pretty good and saves me time from having to clean up the threads.